Hi, today I am painting summer. This is the second season because we just entered summer or thereabouts, so I was in the mood for this just after spring. Technically, I finished painting all of this at the time I published um, the spring video, but I end up having trouble editing. The video kept crashing. The editing software kept crashing on these videos specifically, which doesn't usually happen. So it took a lot longer. So here I'm basically just tracing the general idea of what everything will be, and it ended up pretty close to that. Of course, the way I painted the sky meant that most of those lines were not visible, basically immediately. But before I started painting, I did take a picture of these sketches so that it was relatively easy to figure out where everything will be. And I did deviate from this. Here, there's on the hill by the tree, there's a little campfire that I didn't end up painting, and on the top of the hill right here, I'm currently drawing a slide, but it felt out of place, so I ended up not painting it. Here, I wanted the sky to be a lot darker than the sky I made for spring, and I wanted it to be the initial plan was to make it cloudless. I ended up deciding to add some clouds basically at the very end of the project. But so I started with basically the darker blue that I have, and I made one full, pretty thick layer of that. And then I just started adding, again, thick coatings of pale blue. It'll be easier to explain once we're there, but I was always flowing from the left side of the canvas to the right side of it when I was adding lighter blues. I wanted the strokes of the paintbrush to be visible once it was done, to give an hint of wind direction. It felt good to me. So for this coat, I did go multiple directions. Sometimes I just to make sure that the first coat of dark blue is pretty even, and that every bit of the canvas is touched by the paint. But once we're at the light blue, it's going to be all from left to right, and mostly trying to make a one fluid motion from one edge of the canvas to the other, mostly so that I can avoid any. I didn't want there to be any or vertical lines on the canvas. So the further we are in the project, in the painting of the sky, the more sweeping and long the paint strokes are, as it becomes easier for the paintbrush to glide over the really thick coating of blue I made. I probably should have mixed my blues and made the color I wanted from the beginning, but I didn't know the shade of blue I wanted. I can just added lighter blues until I was satisfied that it was the shade I envisioned. But it's really hard without seeing it on canvas what the exact shade is. So I kind of had to apply it that way. And yeah, when I'm doing my lines from my paint strokes from left to right, I'm also doing swoops. I'm experimenting. I want there to be some texture to the sky, but I'm at this point of the painting, I'm unsure exactly how I want it. And when I do the strokes, I mostly follow the shape of the hills. Uh, sometimes and sometimes not at all. It's a process. I wanted the paint color to be pretty even, but I wanted the brush strokes to be obvious. It was a very strange balance to strike. I'm very happy with how it turned out, even if the brush strokes are a lot less visible than I initially would have liked. Then I use a big sponge to apply just a bit of a hunter's green. I think it's called this specific. I think that's what the bottle calls this green, hunter green. That was for the base coat of the grass, the color. And here I didn't care at all how even the coating is, uh, because I want there. Well, grass is a texture, and for this I really didn't intend on going back with a lighter green to add the grass manually individually like I did with the with spring. So the texture of the initial coat was important here. And then I went with a sponge to add a very uneven gray. I didn't mix the color fully in the paint holder. The word escapes me right now, so that it wouldn't be even at all on the river. Basically, this I wanted with this project. One thing you may notice is that the leftmost section of the summer canvas is the spring canvas. It's the same hill with the path about the same, and I wanted the overview like that bench that I painted on the spring painting. I wanted to show that it was overlooking a river and the rest of a park, and it was I wanted to show how good of a view that bench had, and it felt right to have the part of the spring be a part of some summer. And I'm probably going to try to do something similar for autumn and winter, but I don't want to have the same hill or the same portion of a painting be in 3 paintings of the season, because it felt like if it would feel if I did like if the same hill was shown in spring, summer, and autumn or winter, it would feel repetitive and boring. So, but here, kind of just a hint and a feature shared between the painting. That's fine. That gives it a through line, but I don't want the through line to be all of it, if that makes sense. The way I see it is that next time when I do autumn, I can do part of the other side of the hill that we don't see right now, like it's not added here, but like for autumn, I imagine having the hut looking towards the left. Right now, it's hard to explain the view I have, but yeah, we'll see how I feel when I get there. And when I was talking and rambling, I had been painting the path, a base coat of yellow, a pretty thick one, and then I just thinly mix some oranges to that, so that to give it a bit of a sandy texture, to have the same kind of path as I had for spring. All of the footage in this video is at 2 times speed and will cut when I'm refilling the paint. Usually I like to try to have the paint be at 1 time speed, but this time it would make a video that's 50 minutes long or something like that, so it would not be reasonable. So I decided to go with 2 times speed. You still see basically all of the action, so I don't feel it's a problem. One thing I might mention here is that the I don't know how good my voice sounds right now. I have some seasonal allergies that are starting to kick in, so I do have somewhat of a throat ache and other symptoms of allergies. So if you feel my voice sounds worse than usual, that's the reason. One thing I would like to mention is that this is not a real location, but it is inspired of my feelings that I have for a real location. It's more of a embodiment of two parks that I like a lot. I have one specific in mind. That's a very long part that follows a river for a very long time, crossing it often. The version I made here has a lot less wood than the actual park I use, because it's also kind of, it also evokes, in this painting I was trying to also to capture another part that's more artificial and flowery and with predetermined path, compared to the forest, the one that follows the river that's much more forested and kind of natural. So that's kind of a this is a kind of a weird mix between two parks. And that bench that overlooks the river that I will use in spring, and that's that I wanted to have face the river here. That's because in summer, when I'm in vacation and when the time is good outside, I really like to sit on a bench. There's a specific bench in that park that overlooks the river that I really like sitting at to do some crochet during my weekends. It's a really relaxing. It's yeah, relaxing. I don't see any other word. It's almost meditative, but so here I am painting the trees, kind of sparse trees. I didn't want to do a whole forest, and I wanted to respect what I did for spring that had only two trees on that hill. So I tried to replicate the same density for summer. Now here, you could say that I'm wasting time. I am doing a lot of efforts to have the branches look the same way as they did for spring, even though for spring there was basically no leaves, only buds, and here most of the branches will be covered with a layer of green. But it felt, I didn't want the trees to be just one ball of green at the top. Uh, so I tried, when I applying the leaves with a sponge, to apply them thinly so that we could see the branches underneath. So it was not a waste of time, but it was I could have made it much simpler, but it felt right to do things complicated? Why make things easy when you can make them hard, as they say? And here I add a very thin layer of blue for the river. I want the reason why I added all this layer of gray is that I wanted the river to look shallow. I wanted to look turbulent, and the best way I found to do that was to add a layer of rocks underneath them. And here I use a little sponge to add a thin coat of green to the trees to have the leaves show. And I'm really happy with the result here. Initially, I thought I would need to use 2 types of green for the trees to make them pop out, but I was really satisfied with the first coat, so I didn't risk making them worse with a different color. It could have been better, but I felt like it could be worse, so I didn't risk it. So here I paint one of 4 benches I made for this. Starting with the legs and the armature, using basically the same technique as I did for spring. And I tried to replicate the design I did for spring, but because it's much smaller than the bench I painted for spring, it looks kind of goofy to me. These benches are not nearly as nice looking to me than the ones for spring. Really passable, really, they're still good. I'm not saying that I hate it, but it's not quite as good as the other ones. And here I imagine that the river continues on in the same direction of the path. Just maybe horizontally beneath the canvas, the curve continues. I imagine all of these benches overlook the river. And here I'm painting just a picnic blanket that's been left there. I assume that the person that's playing with a kite beneath on the other side of the hill. I've not painted the kite yet. And here you'll see some cuts. I don't know exactly where, but there's some weird cuts at some point here because the recording had some troubles, and the footage was not smooth. There was places where the video itself was frozen for a few seconds and nothing could be seen, so I had to jump those sections. Most notably for the string of the kite. And for the kite, I went with a very simple design. I wanted it to be very obvious what it is, so I just made a square with some strings floating in the direction of the wind, followed by a string tying it loosely behind the hill. And then I added some more details for the hills to look less boring. I added red flower bushes. Well, I don't know if those are berries of bush or flowers. Could be either. I viewed them more as flowers, but in art, there's always a room for interpretation. So the side of the park that doesn't have trees, I used red flowers. And for the other side of the river, I used blue flowers that aren't in bushes, that are more in patches. I did that to give a feel that this park is organized. It's not a natural park. Well, the river itself is natural, but everything around it has been is being managed by someone or a group or something. Manicured, I think, is the word I want to use here. So I just made some bunches of blue flower with just dots, and then I tied groupings of dots of flowers with stems that go to the same point to make them bouquets. At this distance from the video, we don't see much of the difference, but when I zoom in later to show the finished result, it's the stems will be much more obvious. And here I'm painting the hut. The way I view it is that this is maybe a groundskeeper hut or animation center, maybe a small one that explains the types of flowers in the park, or maybe some history of this river or things of that nature. I view this as a place where the kids can learn about the park in one way or another. Maybe it's insects, maybe I don't really have an idea for the exact thing that's in this hut, but it is definitely a feature of the park where people can go do something. I used the same color that I used for the trees. Well, the same paint. I just made it, applied it a bit thinner for the walls of the hut. And then I made a red roof, with that I kind of splotched the paint onto to make it kind of like tiles. Like I made it very uneven on purpose. With still a pretty thick coat to ensure that it's very bright red. It draws the eye. And then I added some light clouds. It just felt right. I added clouds until I felt like there were enough. I didn't. I was careful here to not add them just at the top of the sky, but also at the bottom of the sky, because that way the whole sky, it feels less artificial that way. Like it gives a sense of the horizon, I feel like. The cloud that's closest to the house kind of feels like, kind of looks like there's a smoke coming out of it. So I kind of regret that specific cloud slightly. It's not that big a deal, but I feel like it's not. It doesn't do what I want it to do. It doesn't read cloud, that specific one. Sometimes it's looking passively at the painting. It doesn't matter, but that's my small gripe with it. And here I'm using some very light gray to paint a bridge over the river. Like just behind the hill, the two sections of the path connect through that bridge, to give it a sense of connectivity and realism. And I viewed this bridge as being some kind of old castle-like bridge. So I made kind of parapets and used black to make lines as though those are big stone bricks. And I really like this bridge. It's a good bridge. Historically, when I've painted or drawn bridges, I tended to over exaggerate the curve massively. Like there are bridges that make a very strong arc, but I wanted a more realistic and more reasonable one here for pedestrian use. And here I don't think I showed this for spring, but for these paintings where the sides are not part of the painting, I'm going to be painting them black just so that they don't read as part of the painting at all, and to avoid needing a frame for this painting. It just the black kind of already frames it, so that's a trick I got from who did I get them from? Either a friend or my painting class in high school. Hard to say right now. And later I did go back and paint in the white section at the front, the bits that weren't touched by the background here, because they look silly and I didn't want the black to take any part of the front of the painting, to not detract from the look I was going for. And this layer of black is the final step of this painting. There's nothing else after. Well, other than the varnish, but I'm never going to be showing the varnish. This is it's really a maintenance task. I add 3 coats of varnish to the to every painting I make to make sure that it doesn't age as rapidly as it could, to prevent the paint from flaking with if it's too dry, or things like that. And with that, all that's left is the final look, the close-up scrolling look. And yeah, thank you for watching. Feel free to come by whenever you want. Bye.